catastrophe in Adelaide as Tex bags 5. The blistering young Swans leave the Lions shell-shocked, and Clarko's Hawks deliver the most extraordinary comeback. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by AAMI and Kane. We're back with a bang, the most extraordinary upset in South Australia today. It's going to be hard to top this for the rest of the season.
Oh, it will be. How good is footy? No one saw this coming, and I mean no one. But what a lift it is for Matthew Nix's young Crow side. You can see it there, the youngest list in the competition, the oldest in 2017 to the youngest. And I didn't think they had this in them, I'll be completely honest. But it goes to show it's a lesson for any club. If you bring pressure, you bring heat, doesn't matter how good the opposition are, you'll always be in with a chance, and that's what the Crows did so well today. You
call this Adelaide outfit the worst Adelaide outfit in 30 years in its history. Are you eating your words now? You have to take those words back?
Well, that'll be judged at the end of the year, won't it? I said that they'll probably win around 5 games. Now, I still think they've got some massive deficiencies and holes in their list, but the performance today would give them, and more importantly their supporters, a lot of hope that it's not going to be as bad as what it was last year. But that was an extraordinary win. Don't take anything away from the Adelaide Football Club. No Talia, no Matt Crouch. They had 2 down, hot day, 30 degrees in Adelaide, 1 less rotation. It was a phenomenal performance by one of the hungriest Crows side, their best win in the last 4 years.
And they brought the heat early. Some of these efforts in this first quarter to get the ball rolling, have a look at this, the Cats force on the back foot straight away.
Well, this is what I was so impressed by, because this doesn't take talent, this doesn't take high draft pick. No one knows your age when you're bringing this pressure. Look at that. That's Mick Henry, that's Berry, and that's the captain Sloan. What a good mix it is. And watch again, you'll see Ned McHenry in there. Sloan will come in with the tackle of the season so far. You got Seedsman in there. Laird had a great game today. And stuff like this from Hamill, like Dangerfield, one of the fastest players in the competition. He doesn't care that that's Patrick Dangerfield. Cause a turnover in your back half and save a goal again. It was time after time. Lockie Murphy here. This was what was so impressive from the Crows today.
The first time in 50 years a wooden spoon side has beaten a grand finalist in round 1 the following year. It's an amazing effort. The Saturday Star, you've been strong on this man for a long time. Taylor Walker, he's kicked 5 goals. Is this as good as you've seen him for the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I thought he's had a great pre-season. You can tell in his body, and it goes to show when you've got a footballer playing for their future, he's out of contract at the end of the year, and nothing motivates players like being out of contract. He got super fit, and this is the result. Certainly the new rules, I think, will help him with that fast ball movement going inside 50 and getting him out on the lead. But he's always been able to do that. Like, his kicking today was an absolute thing of beauty. Like, he was just striking the ball as good as you've seen any player in the last 20 years strike a Sharon. So, look, he's a spiritual leader there, and he got them going today, and he was by far the best man on the ground, to the point where I reckon he's passing this one, and it still drifts through. He just had one of those days.
And his sidekick, Billy Frampton, maligned for a lot of the time. They've gone with Himmelberg at times. Frampton today, he was one of the better players on the ground for the Crows. Now, the big talking point out of this one is going to be Patrick Dangerfield's match review weight. This is his hit on Jake Kelly. Now, he's elected to bump here, Patrick Dangerfield. So as per the match review guidelines, if you choose to bump, you hold the power essentially. So players are liable if they elect to bump. Now, we're expecting this to be high contact, obviously. Careless because he's chosen to bump. High impact will be 2 weeks. Severe or anything more will be 3 and could be a long way out. It throws his Brownlow medal hopes down the drain as well.
Yeah, 2 weeks minimum, perhaps 3 you would think. It could be severe. Like, Kelly was out before he even hit the ground. So, look, I have some sympathy for the player now, because there was nothing malicious by what Patrick Dangerfield did there, but with the state that we're in with concussion and protecting the head, the AFL and the MRO have no option but to suspend him. But I do feel sorry in the split second. He's trying to sort of protect himself, running at full speed, and you hit heads, and unfortunately Jake Kelly gets concussed. But there's not a lot of room for accidents in footy anymore when it comes to the head.
Cats 0-1. They come up against Brisbane next week, we'll get to in a moment. Jeremy Cameron out. It's a big week coming up for them.
Cameron out, Dangerfield out, Menegola out as well, because he'll have to miss 12 days because he was the injury sub today. So 3 of their top 10 players out, and this time next week, one of the grand finalists and preliminary finalists will be 0-2.
To Marvel Stadium tonight. Essendon looked like they were going to blow this one out for how much you could guess at half-time. 40 points they led by in the second quarter, 39 at half-time. Hawthorn came back with a wet sail. Kane, this is 2.5 minutes ago. Essendon remarkably get back in front.
It's a great game of footy by 2 sides that we think are going to struggle, particularly the Hawks. We probably think they're going to struggle. And this was the final moments. Look at the clock here. O'Brien, look, just drifts across. He wasn't sure, was going to pass it off. eventually goes back and snaps it. And that was victory for the Hawks. What a win. From 40 points down, it was extraordinary. Essendon kicked 8 goals to 1 in the second quarter. Hawthorn kicked 8 goals to 1 in the third. How's the swing of momentum in that game? But well done to both sides. They're both going to struggle, but they put on a great game of footy. Not that that would be any consolation for Ben Rutten in his first game as coach.
And you could even argue second or third year, given he's been at the Bombers for a long time before that. The Hawks did it without Sicily, Gunson, Wingard, and then their other star, Tom Mitchell, no pre-season, 39 touches for him. But as you said, they did it in the third quarter. I'll have a look at some of the highlights here. They've seen like they've found a few of these small forwards. Tyler Brockman bobbed up. Dylan Moore with 3 goals. They've been crying out for some small forward options and they found some.
Yeah, it's all you want. We've been banging on that Hawthorn. Where's the talent coming through? Because they've gone to the trade period and topped up with experienced players and haven't had the first round draft picks. But they found a couple. So that was the good. If I'm Ben Rutten, though, I'm a little bit concerned. For such a defensively minded coach, Hawthorn sliced through Essendon today at times so easily. So they kicked 8 goals from 15 entries in the third quarter. Like, that defensively is diabolical from Essendon and Ben Rutten. As you said, Hawthorn without a lot of their good players and best goal kickers. So it was just far too easy, and Ben Rutten's got a lot of work to do to shuffle those magnets and get his players playing the defensive way that he's banged on about all pre-season.
24 ground balls more they conceded in the last half. 24 in one single half. A bit of pressure falls on them now. You look at that next month. Port Adelaide, St Kilda, Sydney and Brisbane. It's not going to get much easier for Ben Rutten.
No, it won't, and he'll need wins. He'll need early wins because the pressure will come, albeit it's in his first year. But as you say, he's been there for a while, waiting in the wings, and the Bombers fans have waited a long time. And what they served up today, particularly defensively in that third quarter, was as bad as we've seen for a while.
And there's no excuses for young sides, as we saw at the Gabba tonight. Sydney, extraordinary against Brisbane. Dropped 125 points on them without Lance Franklin. Who saw this result coming with 2 of these young stars, Errol Goulden and Logan McDonald, on debut?
Oh, it's amazing. If it wasn't for Adelaide, this would be the story of the night, wasn't it? Like, prelim final, Brisbane, they top up with Joe Daniher. We think they're going to go the next step, but goes to show if you get a good side early when they've had a bit of a disrupted or shorter pre-season than the sides that didn't make the 8, you get some youth, some energy, some talent, which we saw tonight with a few of these Swans players. And you look at Campbell and Dawson, and Blakey's going to improve, and Wilkes, they can all kick the footy and they've all got speed. So that's the thing that stood out to me for the Swans side, the way that they used the ball. 23 marks inside 50 to 4 tonight. And the Swans put on that scoreline. So what a remarkable coach John Longmire is, and what a remarkable young side they've got building. A lot of optimism out of Sydney tonight.
And one that might have gone under the radar, Tom Hickey, 9 clearances in his first game, came across pretty much their only ruck option, came across 21 disposals as well. But it was a pretty poor effort from the Lions to concede as many of those inside 50 marks as you mentioned, and they didn't look like they brought much pressure tonight.
Look at the ease of this. So I want to highlight, look, they're raffling it. In a lot of these clips, you'll see not just one Swans player uncontested inside 50, you'll see 3 and at times 4. And it was a little bit like what Hawthorn did to Essendon, just slicing through them with their good ball movement, taking advantage of the man on the mark. But that's just work rate. That's working harder than your opponent who doesn't want to get back and defend like your life's depending on it. Look at the arms. Look, they're hailing cabs everywhere, the Sydney players, and you'll see it time and time again. So 23 marks inside 50 in at times slippery conditions. This would be what's the most concerning thing for Chris Fagan tonight. And watch Heaney here. He was good, 3 goals, unselfish, turns around. How many Swans players we got there? Oh, there's another one, uncontested inside 50. So Brisbane's tackle count tonight, 41. In a whole game of footy, 41. Lachie Neale didn't lay a tackle. Round 1 last year, Lachie Neale had 10. So I reckon that's just a little thing with Brisbane that they're just waltzing in thinking this is just going to happen. Well, you won the Brownlow last year, Lachie Neale. You're a great player, but you did not lay a tackle in a full game of footy. Not one game you didn't lay a tackle last year. It's a small sign for me. Big spearhead up in attack, Joe Daniher. Mixed bag for him tonight. Kicked one of the first goals of the game. What did you make of this reaction? Well, it was interesting. I'd be filthy if I was an Essendon fan, if I saw this. I mean, such a famous name. They were pretty good to win the Bombers, I reckon, through some pretty frustrating times. They paid him big money. They were patient with him. To see that, I don't know, a little bit of arrogance, but Joe's enjoying his footy. It was good. And this was the other one. We saw it with Asprey the other night with the frustration of throwing an elbow back. You'd have to be pretty silly to do that as a player. Look, he's on report for that. He'll get off. Yep. If Asprey gets off, which was worse with a $2,000 fine, there's nothing to see there, but you'd want to be careful.
And that game next week, Geelong-Brisbane, as we said, becomes massive.
Huge.
Either side does not want to start the season at 0-2. To the MCG today, a bit of a scrappy affair, but crucial. Simon Goodwin got his season underway with 4 points. This man, Tom McDonald, the Demons couldn't give him away in the trade period last year. 2 years left on his contract, more than $1 million across the 2 seasons. He comes up and proves the match winner.
I was rapt to see it, and it's like a little bit like the Taylor Walker syndrome. When you're playing for your football life and it's almost your last shot or you're out of contract, look how fit he looks. I mean, he's always looked fit, hasn't he? And he's always looked ripped, but he looks super trim, and he looks like he's got a hardened body. He's covering the ground much better than he has in the previous 2 seasons. So he had to play well today because no Brown, no Wiedemann, who have to continue to stand up until those two are back and fit. But he's shown that he's going to be a key part of the Melbourne lineup this year, and I was rapt to see it.
The Dockers didn't really fire a shot and failed to put scoreboard pressure on the Demons. What did you make of some of their ball movement, especially coming out of the D50?
No, it's horrific. So you've got 4 months to practice the way you want to play in round 1 against the side that you hope to be around the same position in the ladder, and this is the first quarter. So this is how predictable they were. No wonder Lever and May were the 2 best players on the ground probably today and just dominated in the air, as we're going to see the highlights here. But this is Fremantle on repeat. We're going to show about 5 or 6 clips of them going down the right side of the ground in the first quarter. I could have showed 11. They did not challenge the other side of the ground, open things up, make the game bigger, use your speed, use your run, use your youth. This was how predictable they were. And as I said, we could put this on replay, but Stephen May was outstanding, best player on the ground. Jake Lever wasn't far behind him because Fremantle allowed them to do that.
May and Lever combined for 20 intercept possessions. That's the tally of the day. And then 57 inside 50s for the Dockers, only a handful of marks. That just shows the tale of their tape. Now, they were forced to throw Alex Pearce forward because of their lack of forward options. He's gone down with another injury, playing his first game back in more than 650 days. Horrible luck for this player who proved a long time ago he's going to be one of the best young defenders in the game.
Heartbreaking, isn't it? I initially thought it was an ankle, which you thought, no, because he's had surgery on that ankle, I think 3 times, but MCL in the knee, which they're saying sort of 12 weeks. It's a massive blow. Could have been worse, but heartbreaking for him. And that one there as well, that nasty ankle injury to Hamlin.
And every time Joel Hamlin comes off with an ankle injury, you start to get a little worried. So hopefully they can get Hamlin on the park in the next week or 2 and Pearce comes back before too long. Time for a new segment here on the round so far. Ooh. The AAMI clangers Kane. Great to have AAMI on board this season. We spoke about the Dockers. This does not help when Adam Cerra's doing this.
That's the worst. That's going to be tough to beat. It's the worst set shot for the year. I love this one. Tom Papley, one of our favourites here on the round so far, just getting nice and comfortable with the Brisbane Lions supporters. And he's not happy, that Lions supporter. He's not happy, but not a drop of beer spilt. And Tom Papley was a good sport about all that.
And then back to Thursday night, the Blues were coming. Look at the score here, 3 points. This will put the Blues in front. Harry's out of contract. He needs to do better than that this year if he's to earn a big deal. Harry
missed 3 sitters in the third quarter alone. Could have had an absolute day out, a picnic. Good signs, but he's got to just settle himself down in front of goal.
All right, we're keeping our eyes out for the AAMI clangers this year. Great to have them on board. Now, back to Friday night. So much of this history between the Pies and the Dogs is built around Brodie Grundy. He was well beaten by the Dogs ruck combo.
First game of his 7-year contract was on Friday night, Brodie Grundy, and I'm really concerned about it. I was from the minute that he signed that deal, Mitch. I said, why would you give a ruckman 7 years for $7 million? But
153 games to go in this contract.
153. That's a long time. But this was great. Tim English, he's going to be an absolute star. And you've had to be a little bit patient, but that's what you get with a ruckman. And this is why we love the trade period so much, because you go and get Stephen Martin and the impact that a player can have on the whole of the team and a young player, and we're seeing Martin push forward. Just his physicality and his strength to take some real zip out of the opposition ruckman and then allow Tim English to come in and go up against a tired ruckman, more so than a fresh one like we've seen him get monstered in the past. So great recruiting from the Western Bulldogs, and they should be excited about the way they played Friday night.
It looked like Tim English almost blossomed like having a big brother in the schoolyard with Steph Martin around him.
Well, the thing he's got going for him is around the ground. So he can seriously mark the ball and can go forward, can go behind the ball, plug a hole there, and he's pretty good in the ruck. And he looks to have filled out a little bit, looks a lot stronger. So at 23, 24 years of age, he's ready to launch.
The Pies were smashed in the midfield. It didn't give their forwards a great deal of opportunity, but when they did get it in there, they lacked nothing forward of the ball. Have a look at some of these numbers from the Pies forwards. Now, since the 2018 season, they lost that grand final that year by a kick. Have a look at the combined totals following that. So Hoskin Elliott, Josh Thomas, we know Stevenson's gone now, even Mason Cox. For the single season they produced in 2018 to what they've done in the time since, so 2 seasons and now a game, it's pretty grim reading.
It's their biggest concern, and it's not a forward line that looks like a finals-bound team, does it? I mean, who can you rely on? Mycheck, probably the only one on that list that gets a tick, and De Goey is their most potent threat, but he looks okay in the midfield. So I'm not sure. There's always the talk of pushing Darcy Moore forward. I don't know if it's too late and how good he was the other night across the back line, so whether he would take that risk. But I just don't know how they're going to manufacture their goals. And this salary cap squeeze, as a result of the deals to Grundy and others, has forced a young gun, I thought, in Stevenson out, who is a proven goal kicker. He's going to be lining up for the Kangaroos tomorrow.
Collingwood go 0-1. They come up against Carlton this week. That's a massive game on Thursday night in round 2. The Blues, they tried at times, but again, the Tigers just got on top on Thursday night.
Well, they did. Yeah, I thought they were pretty good, Carlton, but I was so frustrated by their tactics. And one of them was against the game's best player. This is what I say about Dustin Martin. You've had 4 months. There's 3 Carlton defenders in the vicinity of the best player in the last 100 years. And no one goes and puts anything on him. Like, this is a 3-time Norm Smith medalist. Look at him. He has got the whole MCG with no one going anywhere near him. So, Teague and your 6 assistant coaches, you did nothing to disrupt one of the best players we have ever seen in the game. Look at this. Count the amount of body contact Dustin Martin gets forward of centre. Does anyone touch him? No, they don't touch him there. He just a bit of globetrotter stuff over the head. Runs through, no one checking him, no one blocking his run to the ball. Now, I'm not saying you need to tag him flat out, but you need to have a physical plan to go out and get Dustin Martin and not let him stand 10 metres alone, taking uncontested chest marks inside 50. It's not good enough for a coach who's had 4 months to know that he's playing Richmond in round 1, and they served up that. So there was a lot of glass half full for Carlton. That there cost them the game, and if they finish one game outside the 8, who knows? It could cost people their jobs. That's how serious it is. So I'm waiting for a team to not be spooked by Dustin Martin and come up with a tactic that can try and at least disrupt him, try something.
And the Tigers continue on their way against the Blues in the season openers. To the rest of the round we go. Big game tomorrow. Look at this middle one, the Giants and the Saints. That is a massive game. The Saints have 9 first-choice players out. Zach Jones ruled out with his corky this week. It's a pretty big game.
Well, and can North Melbourne take some inspiration out of Adelaide and Sydney? Well, why not? Playing at home in front of your fans for the first time in ages. Can you have a crack like Adelaide had a crack yesterday and try and disrupt Port Adelaide with what they want to do? So
you can say the same for the Gold Coast.
Exactly right. None of those games are gimmies, and we've seen that in round 1, and that's what makes the competition so even and so good.
To our one more thing from the weekend, we couldn't forget this. Adam Treloar booed with his first kick by the Pies fans. They gave him this reaction with 4 minutes to go.
Took him 3 3/4 to win the Pies fans over. They loved him. He loved it. I thought the Collingwood, his opposition, were a little bit too friendly. Hugs before the game, smiles throughout the game. I thought they made life a little bit too easy for Adam Treloar and let him did as he pleased. So that was an interesting one to watch as well.
Kane Collins, good to be back here on the round so far.
See you next week.